Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We are so happy to have you back with us here in Advocacy Arena's weekly live chat, where we gather to inform and inspire civic engagement each Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern and 12 p.m. Central. We're very fortunate to have a special guest with us today here in Advocacy Arena. I am very excited to introduce you to Michele Hornish, who is the executive director of Every State Blue. I think you'll find her very informative and inspiring, something that we love here in Advocacy Arena. I'm pretty sure she's going to get you more jazzed about us fighting everywhere. So, hello, Michele. I am so glad that you have joined us today. I hope you have gotten settled in and you feel comfortable. And we're just going to get this show on the road and get started. So,
That sounds great, Dee. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. And thank you for everything that you're doing. Having a space like this every week that is intended to inspire people and keep people active and motivated is so important. I'm so glad that you're doing it. So thanks for having me on.
well, we're honored to have you. And yes, it is my passion. So thank you for participating. And we're just going to dive right in. And I'd like to start kind of at the beginning and allow you an opportunity to introduce yourself to folks, give them a little bit of your background. Like they know you're the executive director of Every State Blue. You're also an author of a substack, Small Deeds Done. And just tell them a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll get into Every State Blue.
Of course, of course. So I'm a lawyer by training. I sort of joke that I'm a recovering lawyer. And after the 2016 election, I sort of looked around at what was going on in the political space and in the activism space. And those were the early days, sort of the wild, wild west, right, of activism, when everyone was trying to figure out how exactly we were going to, what we were going to do going forward. And folks were sharing tons of different ideas on how to be active, and oftentimes didn't really know the most effective way to advocate for legislation, or sometimes they didn't even understand what the legislation was. So I started Small Deeds Done back then. In the early days. It was November of 2016, actually, when I first started Small Deeds Done. And it's based on the Peter Marshall quote, small deeds done are better than great deeds planned. So that's sort of my ethos, right? My reason for being is making sure that people feel like there's something that they can do that is workable, that they can fit into their everyday life, that's an easy lift, but that collectively is just a massive impact. So I'm sorry, go ahead, Dee.
No, I was going to say it sounds like what we do here, and we try to encourage here every week within the community. So I love it. Go ahead, continue. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, not at all. Because that's exactly it, right? Is making sure that people have a way to stay plugged in, stay engaged, and stay hopeful. So it was through that I met Jonathan Zucker, who was the first COO and second CEO of Act Blue. He and I collaborated on a piece that he wrote for me for Small Deeds, and we worked so well together that we sat down and had coffee and started talking about how we could empower people through, creating these communities of folks that can crowdfund for Democratic nominees for Congress, but also for state legislature. And we started our pilot project in Missouri in 2017, our state our state legislative pilot project then. So that's how I got involved with Every State Blue, and it has grown and changed and had lots of iterations, from 2017 to now. But that's a little bit of background about who I am and how I get here today.
Okay, so let's kind of get into the meat of things. How would you describe Every State Blue to people, what it is and what they do?
Right. So Every State Blue, which folks can find at everystateblue.org, Every State Blue is the umbrella organization for a number of state projects, and then also for a federal project that we have called Forgotten Democrats. We have state projects in Ohio with Blue Ohio, in Missouri with Blue Missouri, and now in Tennessee with Blue Tennessee. And our goal in each of these states and in the federal project is to create these communities of people, small dollar monthly donors that together crowdfund for underfunded Democratic nominees who are running, usually in the reddest districts in the reddest states. So that is our sort of purpose and our reason for being. We're filling a gap. It's a very specific gap that we're filling to make sure that there are resources that are available to the people who are running in some of these really red districts that often go uncontested or underfunded.
And that's good because there definitely is a gap, and I think most of the folks in here, are very politically engaged and understand that, and often, question like, why is it, and what can we do? And folks know that I am part of Blue Tennessee, so and I talk about it all the time, but I am so glad that you are here to kind of expand on it. And if you would explain to them how Blue Tennessee fits into every state blue.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm just so thrilled to have you involved with Blue Tennessee, and to have your involvement is great. So Blue Tennessee fits in because Tennessee is sadly not unique amongst red states in that there are a number of state legislative races that have been uncontested and have been undersupported. So in 2022, there were 45 of 99 state house seats that were completely uncontested by Democrats, 45 of 99. So already Republicans were walking into almost a guaranteed majority. Of the races that were contested, that Democrats contested, 24 were underfunded. And when I say underfunded, I mean they had less than 36 cents per eligible voter. And that number is kind of specific. It's based on some data that we have, but they had less than about $23,000. And that's to run in a district size of over 60,000 people. 13 of those nominees, so 13 of the 24 that I just talked about that were underfunded, 13 of those had less than $5,000. Again, to run in a district size of over 60,000 people. So it's very difficult for a Democrat, for anyone, to be able to get their message out there when they're funded at that level. Yard signs can be $5 or $10 a piece. You're talking about 100 yard signs, that's $500. None of this stuff is inexpensive. You need, walk sheets, you need postcards, you need, campaign flyers. All of these things add up. And so not even having $5,000 is really, really difficult for these people who are trying to go door to door, who need to be able to get across these really large rural districts. So our purpose, our reason for being, is to make sure that none of these people feel like they're going it alone. So our communities of people, we crowdfund every month. Folks chip in a few dollars, and then after the primary, we distribute those funds. But we do it in a different way. We actually distribute from the bottom up. So we look first for those who have the least. And those are the people that we give funding to first. And we distribute those funds evenly until we bring everybody's bathtub up. So we create almost a funding floor. Ohio is probably a good example. So we started Blue Ohio in 2022. So we've had a full cycle now of Blue Ohio members, and we have about 1,000 people there. And because of the support of that grassroots community, which is tremendous, it's about 1,000 people. Because of the support of that community, we have raised and already distributed over $285,000 to 56 Democratic nominees for Ohio State Legislature, which is awesome. That means that there's a funding floor in Ohio of over $7,000. No Democratic nominee for Ohio State Legislature has less than $7,000 to run their campaign, which is a huge deal. It's been really life-changing, campaign-changing for a lot of different people that I've spoken to in Ohio. And that's the kind of thing that we want to bring to Tennessee, and that we have already brought to Tennessee with Blue Tennessee.
So that is one of the things that really got me kind of geared up and excited about being part of Blue Tennessee, just seeing, what our state is like here, and also listening to David Pepper and him having his finger on the pulse, understanding. I mean, I live here, you live in Missouri, David's in Ohio. So we understand how, fascism is just, kind of flowing through our state. And it can make Democrats feel a little helpless and powerless. But what would your response be to that? Because I know you have data to kind of back up what you do the way that you do. Would you share a little bit with us about that?
Absolutely, absolutely. But first, I do want to speak to this feeling of hopelessness and helplessness, because I sense that a lot in Democratic circles, where people feel like, especially in some of these red districts, that there's nothing that we can do. Right? I hear that. I hear that from some folks. And that's difficult to combat, except when you step back and you look at what Democrats' superpower is. We have the people. When we all work together collectively, we have so much power. I've already mentioned Blue Ohio, $285,000 that was raised by 1,000 people means that our Blue Ohio community of grassroots monthly donors, regular folks like us, is one of the largest donors in Ohio politics. That is power, right? That is serious power. And that's just regular folks, like I said, like you and I, just deciding to do something about it. So as far as feeling hopeless and helpless and having data to back up the impact of what we're doing, we do have that data. So I always joke that we're Democrats, so we love studies, and we did our own that actually backs up the same information that we've seen from other studies, from other organizations that you all know, probably like Run for Something and Analyst Institute. Our pilot project started in 2017 in Missouri, and by 2020, we reached out to a team of a research team from Washington University and asked them to assess, like, what is the impact of having someone running in a seat that otherwise was going uncontested, and what is the impact of funding that person? And what they came back with was that having somebody run in a race that otherwise would have been uncontested leads to a 1.5% vote share increase for the top of the ticket. That is huge.
It's
That is
major.
really big.
Yes.
Yes, that is really, really big. We can all think back to various different statewide races that would have turned on 1.5%. So people work really, really hard to make a 1.5% dent. And that's something that we can do just by running people in every district, and then funding them matters too. There was a study of 20 states, state legislative races, that found that 36 cents per eligible voter that was spent by a challenger led to an increase in turnout of 1%. So we have this huge increase in turnout when we enable challengers to spend money turning out voters. And we also have a 1.5% vote share increase for the top of the ticket just by having somebody on the ballot. So there's a huge impact just of funding these underfunded races and challenging races all across the state. I say this a lot, that I don't know of a single district across the entire United States that ever went 100% to a Republican. There are Democrats in every single district across the country. We just have to give them a reason to get out and vote. We need to give them a reason to be motivated and to be excited about the election. And we need to let them know that there's a Democrat on the ballot and that they need to get out there and cast their ballot.
I really appreciate you coming and saying that and sharing that, because, of course, being here in a red state, and a lot of the people in our community, the people in this space, they are from all across the United States, some of them in very blue states and some of them in, maybe purple states. And so often in conversations like this that, I'm in spaces a lot of times, especially in the heat of elections like this, there's never been one like this, but, other elections, they just tend to kind of like, not want to put any effort, like, why can you tell people? You've already said it, and I know that there have been people who have come around, I guess, in their way of thinking, but just the importance of not forgetting these red states. You know, what else can you share?
Yeah, so it's really important that we not give up in advance, right? I was writing about this actually last week, that Timothy Snyder's book on tyranny, I believe it's 20 Lessons from the 20th Century. It's an incredible book. Timothy Snyder is a Yale professor of history. And his very first lesson from that book on tyranny is do not obey in advance. And one of the things that Democrats unfortunately have done in many of these states, in many of these districts in these states, is that we have decided, we've looked at them and have said that we're not going to run someone in those areas. And even if they do run, that we're not necessarily going to give them the same kind of funding that we would give to, a flippable seat or to a seat that looked like it was purple. And that's a real problem, right? Because we have actually taught Republicans that we will give up if it looks too difficult, if it looks too red. And we've forgotten that there's a lot of progress that needs to happen between a seat that is lost and a seat that is won. You don't go from a red district to a blue district overnight. You've got to constantly be working and spreading that Democratic message and letting people know what's going on in their state. The public service that someone starts as a candidate, it actually begins when they become a candidate. It's like they've got a microphone and they're able to spread the Democratic message across that entire district. They're able to get into a lot of rooms, knock on a bunch of doors. They can get onto the radio. They have that microphone. And when we leave those districts uncontested, it's almost like leaving all these microphones all over the state that are just not spoken into. And that's a real shame. But it also means that we shouldn't be that surprised when we're talking to people across these various red states who don't know how authoritarian their state legislature has become. They don't know that because they haven't been told, because no one has been at their door explaining to them what's going on. But we can do that. We can enable that message to get to more people, to get to more doors, to get to more voters. We can enable that just by giving people who are running in those districts the resources that they need to make some noise.
Absolutely.
So that's really what we're doing.
Yeah, and enable that and make sure that they have options and that they know that they have options, and the incremental work that is required. I love to think about my fabulous co-host who sits here next to me. I look to her and her state as an example all the time because Soul Sister is from Michigan. So it gives me hope because, I bring it up often. We talk about it. We understand that it was under strong, Republican control, but it is no longer, and we talk about that. And she talked about, the work that had to be done. So I feel like an organization like, Blue Tennessee and Every State Blue, and their other projects and stuff is just a really good way for us to do that, a way that kind of has been proven. So, I know that like Blue Ohio and Blue Missouri have been around for a while, and give us some examples of what the change that you've seen, what they do with the money, and how they have come to kind of rely on the work and the organization of, Blue Ohio.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, first, just to note that Michigan has been on the Run Everywhere bandwagon for a couple of cycles now. And I think that we're all seeing the impact of that. I think that it was 2016 when they started running someone in every single district. And so, you can see the outcome of that. So pretty fantastic. Michigan's one of my very favorite states. So, but as far as the impact in Ohio and Missouri, it's been really tremendous. And it's been tremendous both on kind of looking at it from a strategy statewide, but also from the individual candidates. So statewide in Ohio, in 2022, there were, I think, 18 or 20 districts that were uncontested. And we had just launched Blue Ohio in April of 2022. So people didn't really know about us yet. And even with that, we raised almost $80,000, and we were able to provide a funding floor of about $5,800 for nominees. As you can imagine, word about that spread. People liked that. Potential nominees really liked that. They liked the idea that if they were willing to run in a really red district, that they already knew that there was a community of people that were going to have their back. That was going to make sure that they weren't going it alone and that they had some resources to at least get on their way. That made a huge difference in recruiting. And this year, I believe they only have 4 districts that are uncontested. And like I said, we've already, been able to distribute $285,000, and there's actually more on the way. So this makes a huge difference for them. It also means that they know that they can afford yard signs, they can afford mailers. There's a whole bunch of things that they need to get, just bare bones campaign stuff that they need to afford, and they know where that money's coming from. So I was talking to a couple of nominees just as I was calling them and letting them know, you should expect a check, of $5,000 or $3,000 or however much they qualified for. And again, I heard the same thing. Now I can afford those yard signs. Now I can afford that mailer. Now I can get those postcards. There were things that were on their list, and they were GOTV items. They were items that were really essential for them to have a campaign. And now we were able to help them afford those things. And that's a big deal. Same thing in Missouri, where in 2018 and in 2020, we actually had a different funding model. Our funding model was fund every single Democratic nominee for Missouri state legislature evenly and equally. We split the money. But then we reached out to, after our study that we did in 2020, that Washington University study that I told you about, where we realized the impact of having candidates in every race and also funding them, making sure that there was a base level of funding. We asked our community members, we think that it makes sense for us to switch this and use a bottom-up bathtub method where we're funding first those people who have the least, to make sure that everybody has some resources. What do you guys think? And I think it was 97 or 98% of our community voted in favor of that. And so that's how we switched. But in 2022, we had 40% of Missouri's state legislative districts went uncontested. This cycle, we have potential nominees, candidates in 134 out of 163 districts. It made a massive difference for them to hear, we've got your back. There's a community of people who's going to make sure that you have a few $1,000s to run on. You're not going this alone. That message, which is a very democratic message, really, really resonated with the people who were considering running. And I'm really proud of that, because I believe as a Democrat that we all do better when we all do better. It's a cliched saying maybe, but it is absolutely true. And so creating these communities of people that use that ethos, that live by that ethos, and create the support structure for folks who are spreading a democratic message is just, it's so poetic that we're using collective action to be able to spread a message about collective action and hope. It makes me really happy that I'm able to do this work and that it's working so well. So that's the story in Ohio and Missouri. And again, in Missouri, we are one of the largest donors in Democratic politics. So it's always these communities of people, grassroots communities of people, that are making this huge difference.
It absolutely is, and it shows us the power that we have. And I am so grateful that you came to join us. I want to, I brought one person up here because if you're, arrived late, our guest today is Michele Hornish, who is the executive director of Every State Blue, which is kind of the umbrella organization of Blue Tennessee, which you guys know that I am part of here. So I wanted her to come and talk to us and kind of explain in a much better way and in more depth than I could about it. You guys know how excited I am about it. And I'm so glad that she took time out of her day to do it. And since we're getting close to the half hour, I want to kind of invite you guys up to ask questions. I know this is a curious crowd, and I welcome you to come up and ask questions. We're going to stay focused on fighting everywhere. And I love that, Michele, if you could kind of, let's speak to that a little bit, because I love that. And that is one of the things that drew me to the organization. Like you and David Pepper are such great cheerleaders, and you really do give people like myself, these little blue dots and these red seeds, a sense of hope, and not just, pie in the sky, but like something that we can really do. So, I would like for you to kind of tell us that. Oh, and one thing I wanted to say is that I really got excited because it's beyond just funding candidates, but I feel like you gather a community together of really active, citizens who are actively involved, and that power can translate in so many ways. And I know, and I would like for you to speak a little bit about this, because I was blown away because I felt that power of that organization when Ohio had their ballot initiative, because I was on a call with you guys and the success of that. If you would speak to that a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. So you're right. We do. And I should have mentioned this before, because as part of all of our projects, and you can find them all at everystateblue.org, there's a little menu item and you can just choose the drop-down menu and you can see all the different projects that we have. we have a monthly meeting where we all get together virtually so that everyone can participate. We get together and talk about what's going on in the state, or for forgotten Democrats, what's going on nationally, and what people can do to plug in. It's an energizing meeting that's intended to be informative and to give back to this community that's already doing so much to lift everybody else up. So it's my way of like give, right, to the community members, and it really is so much fun. So in Ohio, we have our meetings on the last Friday of the month at noon Eastern. And we have experts coming in. We had Rachel Bidikofer come. David Pepper chairs the meetings. And we hear from a bunch of different candidates that can come and tell us what are they hearing at the doors, what's going on, what opportunities do people have, if they want to help, if they want a postcard, if they want to knock doors. And then when Ohio had the ballot initiative, it was a great space for our community members to be able to come together and talk about what they were doing to get the word out about that, to get the vote out. And it was a great place for a bunch of organizers that were working on that issue to be able to come and talk to a really big community of people who were really plugged in and interested in helping. So if people just want to kick in a few dollars every month and just come to the meetings and be entertained and engaged and inspired, that's great. We love that. But if people want to come and also find other ways that they can get involved with other organizations, we try to enable that too. So there's something there for everybody.
Absolutely. And I know here locally, we're kind of partnering with another grassroots organization, and you guys had a fantastic call to action with them. And I feel like that's a great model for us, just kind of across this country. Like, we are the cavalry. No one's coming to save us. So we have to figure these things out and get busy doing it ourselves. And sitting here on the stage next to us, one of our community members, Joseph, is a member. He joined, and he's not even in Tennessee, so he usually helps kick off our conversations every week. And I wanted to bring him up and see if he had a question or if he just wanted to comment as to what inspired him to join this effort. So, Joseph, going to give you an opportunity to chime in here.
Well, hello, Ms. D. Hello, Soul Sister. Thank you for bringing me up. Yes, I was listening to what Michelle has to say, and I'm definitely agree with and inspired by what she said. That how it takes an effort to turn red district blue, and I've seen it just here in California, how even prior to the redistricting in 2022, there were districts that we flipped blue, that it took a long time, but we were able to get flipped blue. And yes, no Republican should ever run unopposed, because it's just a matter of some districts are going to take longer than others, and some states may take longer than others. And I keep bringing up the fact that California was once a Republican bastion, and then starting in the 1990s, it gradually changed. I think it started when we voted for Bill Clinton in the 1992 presidential election, and gradually we have become more and more democratic, because Republican policies here have just gotten so out of touch and so extreme that the vast majority of our state feels that those policies do not represent us. So it can happen any that we can make this change, but we have to stay dedicated to it. I'm seeing some people on the timeline being rather defeatist today, and this is not the time. This is not the time to throw up our hands and just say I give up. It is not lost yet. We have an election to win. If we win this election, and if we win big, if we get that trifecta in the government, things are going to change positive. But it has to be also up and down the ballot, like we've talked about. Space, the state race, as state legislature, governorship, all of that is important. It has to be an entire down ballot effort. So I am not entertaining anybody that is just throwing up their hands and giving up just because they're chasing clout or clicks or what have you. No, 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 no. This is we've got too much at stake right now with head up. So Michelle, thank you for all of your efforts and your hard work. Dee, thank you so much for your soul sister, of course, always briefing us about Michigan and of course all the union efforts nationwide. And I will say with soul sister, I love how your governor, that she is just absolutely all in for Biden Harris. She has been one of the best surrogates for this administration. So that's all I have to say on this topic. Thank you so much, Ms. D and Soul Sister, for letting me come up.
Well, thank you guys. And Michelle, would you like to just kind of chime in? Like Joseph just kind of laid out, like he understands how this work. And like Soul Sister been in a state where, it wasn't always blue. Like they had to work. And, I just wanted to see if you wanted to kind of chime in on that.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, Tennessee wasn't always red, right? I mean, people forget, there's that Pete Buttigieg quote, there's no such thing as a permanently red state. And I love that quote, but there's a caveat that there's no such thing as a permanently red state as long as you and I don't give up and as long as we continue working at it. Republicans have been running this playbook of running and supporting candidates up and down the ballot for a very long time. They've recognized that this is a long-term strategy, and they've been working at it for a really, really long time in states like Missouri and Tennessee and Ohio and others like Louisiana and Mississippi and Arkansas and Alabama. This is not unique to Tennessee and Missouri and Ohio. Those are just the 3 states that we have projects in right now. But like our name says, we believe that every state should be blue. So we're in this for the long haul as well.
Yes, I think we should have one in it. We should have a project in every state.
I agree.
I agree. If I could clone
I
myself,
agree.
I would.
I wish you could as well. I just want to say I appreciate you coming in here today. It is just an honor for us to have this opportunity to have this conversation with you. I really appreciated your the videos that I watched over the weekend that Dee has already posted up in the nest. And it's inspiring to be with like-minded people, and I think that is something that needs to be widespread. I think that part of the apathy that we see in voters is that they do feel downtrodden, and they do feel beat down by the daily dose of doom that we're being spoon fed by today's media. This opportunity to be with people who are encouraged and energized and refuse to back down and refuse to give in is something that keeps me motivated. And I think that it would motivate others as well, just based on conversations that I've had over time and even just recently. So this organization is extremely important in organizations like yours, and I just want to commend you for being such an inspiration to us, and doing the hard work and the good trouble work that we see you guys doing each and every day throughout the country, across the country. And I agree. It needs to be in every state. I want it in every state. I know Michigan is blue. I'm not satisfied with that. I want to
Yes,
maintain the blue. We got to
exactly.
keep it blue. I am so sorry, but I never get comfortable because it was something years, and I worked on the labor side of it. So I'm telling you, you talk about bumps and bruises along the way. It was hard. So I don't take any of it for granted. And I think that these organizations, especially Every State Blue, is something that we need, regardless whether a state is blue, purple, or red. We have to maintain our unity in this fight for democracy. Thank you so much. I just really wanted to say that, and I'm sorry for jumping in, but
No,
I had to say
I
it.
know you were bursting at the seams, and I'm glad that you did. And we have had another one of our community members who we love to hear from come up, and I think she has a question. And of course, though, sister, you chime in anytime you'd like. But I'm glad that we have 2K who has joined us, and we're going to give her an opportunity to share or ask a question. So, 2K, you have the floor, my dear.
Thank you so much. Thank you again to both our lovely and wonderful great host here and Michelle. Thank you so much for your video, and I've started following, and I'm really glad to. I used to, until relatively recently, live in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I worked for Doug Jones twice, so you know what that means. The first time I was elated. The second time I just was gobsmacked. It took me a while to get over that loss. Maybe I'm not really, but my point is this: I did work with a lot of people who are, what do you call the one, a blue dot in a red state. And many of them had that bumper sticker, etc. And they are still there, committed to doing the work. So I'm going to make sure that they know about you and your organization, and it will give them hope. And one of the reasons my main outlet for working with like-minded people is a church there. It's a Presbyterian church, and they are really committed to, they walk their talk. They are committed to every single thing that people in this space are for. And I was not a church person until I met them and got involved with them as a means of having a way to be around like-minded people. They write letters, they march out, all kinds of things. I don't know that they know about you, and I'm going to make sure that they do. So if there's any extension of your message, they can hop on. I'm sure they will. And I'm so grateful to be able to refer them to you and your efforts. Thank you.
I can't thank you enough. And Soul Sister as well. Those kind words, I just really appreciate it more than you know. This work, I've been doing this since 2017. And I feel like now finally in 2024, we're having our moment where people are realizing the importance of running everywhere, of fighting everywhere, of talking to people everywhere, and of progress everywhere. I mean, it's really easy, I think, for people to get demoralized, especially in red states, when it feels like we've given up on huge swaths of the country, because they don't look like they're flippable. They don't look like they're winnable. But it's sort of it's a circular argument, right? They're not flippable and they're not winnable now because we haven't been spending time in those districts for decades. So we need to change that. And we need to recognize that progress is progress and conversations are important. And the people that should be having those conversations are the people who are those people's neighbors, because they can knock on their door and they can talk about things that matter in that district, those people, in a way that, Michelle, coming from St. Louis, going to a red district in Missouri, I'm not going to be able to have the same kinds of conversations about the roads and the schools and everything that's going on, in Iron County, Missouri. But I can make sure that the person who's running in Iron County, that woman who's going door to door, I can make sure that she has what she needs to be successful. And that's part of this is enabling people that are blue dots in red states to be able to help the people who are running in the reddest districts in the state. So I'm so grateful for you to help me spread this message of the importance of progress, of the importance of conversations, and the importance of running everywhere.
Thank you so much. And to Kay, go ahead. And then we have someone else who has joined us who I know is very civically plugged in and engaged. And I'm so glad that she took a moment out of her work schedule to come up and join us. So to Kay, you go ahead, and then we'll go to Susan.
Quickly, I'm just overwhelmed. I really am. I am resolute in my work, and it's ironic that after recent events, today, I feel so committed and have a steely-eyed focus on what needs to happen. And I'm so happy to be in a space right now where we are not lamenting, but emphasizing the energy and focus and intent that we can bring to swinging things around. And as you said, Michelle, too, things change.
Mm-hmm.
It's red until it isn't. And going into having neighbors speak with neighbors and explain how they're voting against their own interests. I mean, we don't have the time, but what's going on in Alabama, any of you know, no, it's appalling how people are voting against their own interests there and the things that they take for granted. And so that's what I just wanted to wrap up by saying, this work, I take nothing for granted. Keep it blue, turn it blue. It's all about. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much for that. Dee, if I could just mention,
Go ahead.
so I had already spoken about the Tennessee numbers, right? That 45 state legislative districts were uncontested in Tennessee, and had mentioned that this was not unique to Tennessee, but it really isn't unique to Tennessee. So I happen to have the Alabama numbers. I was just looking some of this up for something else earlier. In Alabama, 58 of 105 state legislative districts went uncontested in 2022, 58 out of 105. And in Arkansas, it was 52 out of 99. In Louisiana, which is a little bit different because they have a jungle primary, right? So they have a primary process that everyone kind of runs against everyone else. It's not really a partisan primary sort of situation. Even so, 56% of those districts, 59 out of 105, were uncontested by Democrats, 59 of 105. And in Mississippi, 56% of the districts were uncontested in 2023. This is what I'm talking about, where this isn't unique to Tennessee. This has become like a strategic problem for us. And not looking at those districts and saying, wait a second, there are Democrats in those districts. There are people in those districts that need a voice, that need someone pushing back against these authoritarian state legislatures that are ruling with sort of an iron fist and not allowing any dissension. And so if we want to do that, if we want to push back against those state legislators and those red state legislatures, we need to enable the people who are making that happen. We need to make it easier for them to run. We need to make it easier for them to make the decision to run. And we need to make it easier for them to be able to spread this democratic message that we all know needs to get out there. There were, 4.8 million Tennesseans that didn't hear in 2022 a democratic message as part of a campaign. That's a real problem, but that's something that we can fix. And that's what I'm here to talk about doing. And that's what we do at Every State Blue. We try to make these big problems something that everyone can lift just a little bit of. We each have just a small lift, $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month. And then we can all help make progress and help protect this democracy.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that I am constantly saying here is that we can't all do everything, but we can all do something. And it's very important, and the small things matter. And I know that we are amongst the community of people who recognize that it's not just about our state where we live. Like, we are committed to fighting for securing democracy everywhere. So I'm so grateful to be in a community where so many people recognize that and pitch in and do what they can to help people in other places beyond their community. And with that, I want to go next to Susan, who has come up to join us, and see if she has a question or something she would like to share. So hello, Susan. How are you?
Hello, Misty. Hello, Soul Sister. And hello, Michelle. Thank you for letting me speak, or I have a question. So it's very interesting to listen, to the fact that there are so many uncontested races everywhere. And I know from my personal experience, I'm a naturalized. I have not been voting my whole life here, but when I started, that was in Texas. And quick side note, I was naturalized a month before Barack Obama won the election. He was my first vote I ever casted.
Aren't you lucky? And Susan also Susan spent a little time in Tennessee, so our politics here aren't foreign to her.
So I've been in Illinois, Tennessee, Texas, and now in Pennsylvania. So, but anyhow, my question or thought would be, because I noticed, like in especially the regional or local election, I always figured maybe it's just because I'm not from here, I don't know people, but it seems like when I ask people, hey, who are, I check out the ballots beforehand to make sure to see what's on the ballot. And, our Secretary of State, or the voter services, they do a really good job. So you can look at the ballots way ahead of time. And so I try to look at the candidates, or even like district attorney candidates, or justices or judges that are running. So, and it's what I found is that most people, when I ask my neighbors or friends, like, who's the judge, who's the incumbent, or do you know anything? Most people don't know anything about any of these people. And I know it's not necessarily the candidates, but like other important positions, as we learn now, how important the judiciary is. So I wonder if there's, I think somebody several months ago used the word bundle here in this space for something like bundling something. It was a great expression. So I was wondering, like, if candidates are running like on local levels and we go and knock doors and things like that. If I know I get mailers once in a while for justices or judges that are recommended, or district attorney, but can we do more to educate people? Hey, if you go and vote, you get actually 3-for-1 or 5-for-1, because there are several other positions on the ballot. And I know Democrats, I've seen it, there is outreach there, but probably not enough. And I don't know if there's any way to make that more important to voters and let them know, hey, you gotta go, even though you think it's just your community level election here, but that's the most important one. That's where you have the greatest influence from the grassroots level. Get, the people in power you actually need and want for you, to represent you. So that's my question, if we can do anything to combine the information. I found here in PA for the last election, and they say they're independent journalism, and so far I like what I see. It's called PA Spotlight, and they had for the last the last primary, they actually had online, you could check them out, and they had all the candidates, and they had like a quiz, like with quotes from all the different candidates, like for district attorney and for some judge positions, and they just showed the quote, and then you should guess who said that. And then they gave you the results, which person. So you could kind of see, oh, this person said this. I'm not aligning with this. So it was kind of interesting, but it made me, you get engaged and you try to figure out, this person I align much more with than the person that's already, there are a lot of judges, they are already they're incumbents, and usually they get voted again in, but there's some, I don't know if we can do more to educate the people and tell them, hey, there are so many other people on the ballot, not only the one candidate. Let's try to make it more interesting for the voter and educate them, because I feel like sometimes it's, if you go somewhere where you don't really know much, then you might as well not go, because you feel, I don't know who to vote for, I don't recognize any, I don't know what they, and that's it. Thank you so much for listening. I know that was a lot. Thank you.
No, I think that's a great question. It's a really great observation as well. What you're talking about with this ballot roll-off, there's actually a term for it. It's ballot roll-off, and it's people that often start at the top of the ticket. They know, that they want to vote for Joe Biden, and they know that they want to vote for Gloria Johnson, but they might not know some of the other people that are further down the ballot. And there was a study that was done, I want to say by Sister District, and I should probably just do a quick search through my emails to find it specifically so that I can give it to you all. And it was fascinating. They talked about how Republican voters tend not to roll off. They go all the way down and they vote straight party line. And Democrats tend to roll off, tend to not vote for someone, even if there's a Democratic, tag next to their name, tend not to vote for that person if they don't know who they are. If they don't know something about that candidate, they're not willing to vote for them, because they feel like it's really important for them to, like you said, know who that person is, know what they stand for, make sure that you're making a good and responsible and educated choice. And so it was really interesting to see that data showing that, if candidates haven't had the opportunity, whether it's on their own or through a coordinated campaign like you were talking about, if a candidate hasn't had an opportunity to explain who they are to that particular voter, then that voter might not vote for them at all, even though, they would be a better representation of that voter's interests than the Republican. So it doesn't fix the problem that we have of, voters not feeling like they know the candidates, voters not feeling as though they're fully informed. That's really difficult for us to be able to fix just as our organization. Although, I would say that, frankly, nationally, I think that we could do a better job of making sure that voters feel like they're informed and engaged about the choices that are in front of them. You probably could go to the Bar Association for Pennsylvania and see if they have something on the judges in particular. I will say that, because those are pretty difficult to find information about, because those judges, those candidates, they actually don't really campaign. So it's difficult in particular to find information about them. But you will find surveys and data from other lawyers on those judges if you look at the Bar Association in those states. But
Much.
the sister district study, it really emphasized for me the importance of making sure that down ballot candidates have resources to be able to get the word out that they exist, that they're there. For them to be able to have a website so that they can put some of their policy positions up, so that someone like you who's looking around to see, who is Michele Hornish? She's running for state legislature. What is she about? That you can go and you can find those things out for people. That's really, really important. So that's I'm glad that you are as engaged as you are and that you are as informed as you are. It's really incredible. And I hope that we can make it so that all Democrats feel like they have the information that they need in order to make a good choice.
I just want to jump in as well to tag on to that. I know that across the country, the AFL-CIO does put out a list of endorsements for voting, and they do include judges on there. You can also reach out to labor organizations like that, and you will find that they will have some information on certain endorsements, and more specific probably to your district or a regional area, and can gather that information because they are actually on the ground working, and of course they are working for working people. I just really, I know that a lot of times people think of labor and they only think of, automotive or whatever manufacturing industry, and not really take into account the fact that the labor unions that I am associated with, that I am familiar with, that I have worked with, all believe in fighting for everyday working people, and therefore it is not just specific to their area of industry, and the people that they represent, because we also here in the labor industry believe in every state blue, because that is how we spread progress and advocate for democracy. So if you're not seeing what you need to see from your independent papers or mainstream media, obviously they fail us continuously. I would suggest that you reach out to labor organizations within your district, within your region, and I'm sure that you will be able to get that information. And a lot of that is online. I have done it for many of my relatives, not just here in my state of Michigan, but obviously out of the state, which is how I know that it does that it is available for you. It's just probably not something that you would normally think of to search for, or that would naturally come up in your searches if you haven't done it before. So AFLCIO.org would be a great place to start for you. I just really want people to be aware of the fact that we are not limited in information and resources. What we are challenged with is, like like you just said, Susan, having it all in one place. And I believe that organizations like Blue State, and the labor organizations are working hard, but we need to work more cohesively. And I guess that right now we are the people who are working to make sure that that is more cohesive. So I hope that helps.
Thank you for adding that, and remind me, if you will, send me a text or something so I can make sure that I put that on our shareable Google Doc. We have a resource Google Doc that we continue to try to update with all sorts of resources for folks, and I'm not sure that one's on there. So we are getting close to the top of the hour. I have really enjoyed Susan's question, and all of the other speakers, to Kay and Joseph, and Michele being here with us. And I know she has a very, very busy schedule, so we're going to start to wrap this portion up. But we will continue, and you guys have seen our agenda, so it's kind of hot today. But before we transition, I would like to give Michele an opportunity to have some last words and to tell people what they can do right now, how they can help and how it matters, but just some closing thoughts from you.
Yeah, thank you so much again, so much to you and Soul Sister for having me, and for everyone who's joined us during this hour. It's been a really great conversation, and I'm grateful to be in this space and working arm in arm with all of you. It's really wonderful. There's something that I forgot to mention that I don't believe that I mentioned earlier on, which is that when we do contest every district, when we fight in every district, we don't allow Republicans to consolidate their resources in the same places that we're fighting. So we're not only making sure that we're lifting up Democrats who are in red rural spaces, we're also making sure that Republicans have to fight in those same places and that they have to answer to their constituents in those same places. So we're holding people accountable as well. It's one of the big reasons why I think having an Every State Blue project, having a blue state project in every state is really critical, even in places, Soul Sister, like Michigan, which I would love for us to have a project in. And I hope that everyone leaves this conversation feeling hopeful. Like I said at the beginning, small deeds done are better than great deeds planned. And as you have said, Dee, we can't all do everything, but we can all do something. And chipping in a couple dollars a month, the cost of a burrito or a lunch out, $10 a month may not seem like a lot, but when you're pooling it together with a bunch of other like-minded people, we really can move mountains. And so I hope that all of you will go to everystateblue.org, that you'll find a state project that you can support, or that you'll support our Forgotten Democrats project, which is a national project, the same idea, same concept, same problem. 23 congressional districts were uncontested in 2022, and 126 of them were underfunded. So there's a need everywhere. There's a need nationally as well. So thank you again for everyone, for all that you're doing, for all of your advocacy. Thank you to Dee. Thank you to Soul Sister. And I hope to come back again. This was my very first Twitter Spaces, and I was very nervous, but this was great. So thank you guys so
You
much.
did phenomenal.
You did, and I knew she would. She was nervous. I was like, once she figures the tech part out, she is going to knock it out of the park. And I am honored that we were the first space that you were in.
Well, thank you. I am honored to have been asked. So thanks again to everybody. You're really doing incredible work. So I appreciate everything that you're doing.
Well, thank you. And I hope that you will come and join us again. And if you want to stick around a while, you are welcome to see how our typical spaces go, although no two are ever the same, but we generally have an agenda, and we try to focus on the important things and share stories and information to just empower our community to get civically engaged and carry that information elsewhere. So